Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk USC Women's Basketball. And today I have one of the best sports journalists in the land, Sabreena Merchant from the Athletic. My bad. I'm just so excited that you're here. I'm like my words are getting fluttering. Thank you for joining the show, Sabrina.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Cece.
Yeah, and today we are going to talk about your thoughts at a high level on the NCAA landscape this year, some of the conferences, some of the schools, and hear your thoughts on everything. So, you ready to get into it?
Yeah, let's do it.
First and foremost, let's start with South Carolina and the Chloe Kitts injury. What are your thoughts on that, and how do you think that's going to impact their team?
Yeah, I mean it's a big deal, right? You think about South Carolina and how much of their offense they like to get through their posts, and Chloe was a big part of what they did last year, just her ability to face up and, work with her back to the basket, just somebody you could dump the ball into and trust to make some good decisions. Puts a lot more impetus on Joyce Edwards, to be better
Yeah,
than she was last year. But in general, like the forward depth in South Carolina is a little bit compromised, right? Like you don't have Ashlyn Watkins.
right.
Bree Hall graduated, she was really good at that small forward spot. So the youngins are really going to have to come through here. And so that's Joyce, who's a sophomore. I'm excited to see what Isla McDowell looks like. She played for the Brazilian national team over the summer. She's pretty impressive wing. They've got this transfer from Mississippi State. USC fans will be familiar with Medina Okot from the NCAA tournament, that second
Right.
round. Really big physical center, but just more unproven at the forward spots, I think, than you would expect from some recent South Carolina teams. And I, it's a little concerning, like you always want to pencil in South Carolina to just be a number one seed, make it to the Final Four just based on their pedigree. But they're going to have to rely a lot more on their guards than they have to in years past. And maybe they can, because Tanai Latson, leading scorer in the country last year, coming
Yeah.
in transfer, but it's going to require some adaptation from their usual styles. So, not to say that they can't do it, but it's just something that we haven't necessarily seen from this particular group.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because you have Dawn Staley, who is really a front court heavy dominant. That's she likes to run her offenses through her front court, and then you bring
Exactly.
in Latson, who is a ball dominant guard.
Right.
And so I'm interested to see now that Chloe Kitts got hurt, who was, a major part of their program, how is she gonna incorporate Latson more into the offense and kind of let her do her thing, or is she gonna use Medina Okot and Edwards to really fill that void? And yeah, Okot is unproven, but she's 6'6", and Don has a way of building her front court. I
Mhm.
think you know it's going to be interesting to me to see defensively because Raven Johnson is probably one of the best defenders in the country, but is Latson good defensively? I don't know. I haven't really keyed in on her defensive, basketball IQ. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they look defensively as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I thought Pow Pow got so much better defensively in her time at South Carolina from what she was at Oregon, like really good at navigating through screens and just solid team defensively. Like you're not going to put her on their best perimeter player and say like go be a one-on-one stopper, but like within a scheme, I thought she got really good. And you even saw in the WNBA, like her coaches in Atlanta trusted her to put her out in important possessions because of the training she got at South Carolina. So I think like just looking ahead, it's really good for Latson to be in this system that's going to prepare her, for what comes at the next level because I think that's coming. But uh, yeah, it's definitely a jump up just defending in the ACC versus defending in the SEC, and
Yeah.
I'm interested to see how long it takes Latson to make that transition.
Yeah. The other interesting thing is the SEC voted Texas as coming out, as on top of the SEC conference this year, winning that conference. And to be honest with you, I don't know. I don't know what Texas is always good,
Mhm.
uh, but they're a very system-oriented team. They're not individual. They're not, let's say, free-flowing team. They're very system-oriented, and if you don't play within that system, it seems like you really struggle. So I'm just wondering how if Texas is really as good as people think they are, or somebody like a Tennessee, who I believe is my surprise team of the SEC, really going to come out and surprise some folks this year.
Yeah, Texas is interesting because, like you said, their system, it's not like it's not the most modern system in the world, right? Like their three-point rate's a little bit lower than you'd want. They get a lot of their offense in the paint in the mid-range. And they lost a lot of really important seniors. I thought
Yeah.
Taylor Jones was a big part of what they did at Texas last year, and that puts a lot of responsibility on Kyla Oldacre's shoulders. They lost Shea Holly, who's kind of just like the fulcrum of that program, right? Like their
Right.
defender, lone, like real spacer, just like does a lot of things in between the gaps that like allow Madison Booker and Rory Harmon to shine. So another program where like you're going to expect the younger players to have to take a step forward, like Jordan Lee and Aaliyah Crump, coming in from high school. But I'm always just a little wary of Texas because like I know they're going to defend, but I don't know
Right.
that they're going to be versatile enough offensively to really like take what the defenses give them. And maybe that works during the regular season, but like against specific opponents, it's just a little concerning. In terms of SEC teams that I think like could make a real surprise, I just have my eye on LSU. Like that perimeter trio with Wiley now joining Flau'jae Johnson and Michaela Williams is really interesting. That's a lot of athleticism, a lot of shooting, a lot of playmaking, and LSU brought in like a really excellent freshman class. You've got
Yeah.
Grace Knox, I think, who played some USA basketball over the summer. Zakiya Johnson, who just like shot the hell out of the ball during their preseason game. Admittedly, it's preseason, like college preseason is very difficult to read too much into, but like anytime you put up a 12 for 14 performance like in an actual game, I'm interested.
Yeah. Yeah. You
So
talking
like
about the exhibition game against Mississippi College?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's just a lot of interesting pieces on that LSU team. I thought like their depth was kind of shaky last year. They had to rely a lot on Anissa and Flau'jae, and now there's just some more options, especially when you throw in Wiley, who's just so exciting. And like I'm thrilled to see what she can do as a starter, unleashed with a little bit more time than she had at South Carolina. So yeah, I think Tennessee's a really interesting pick, but for me, just like the dynamism that you get from LSU is really just fascinating to me. I love watching those individual players go. So that's a team that I really have my eye on to potentially take the SEC if, South Carolina or Texas take a step back.
Yeah, the LSU is interesting to me too because, like you said, they do have a plethora of players this year that can come on the court and play at any time. I'm interested to see the whole Fuwali situation because last night, of course, she didn't start, and then
Mhm.
in the post game press conference, again, Mulkey was talking about Fuwali having to understand the point guard position. So I'm just concerned of how that's all going to play out. At the end of it, is she going to have a challenging year because of switching to the point guard position, or is Mulkey going to say, you know what, maybe this is not going to work, and I need to go ahead and let you continue to play off guard where you're the most dynamic. So I'm interested to seeing how that plays out.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I think it's hard to sort of like pigeonhole Phil Wiley into like one position, right? She's kind of a one, she's kind of a two. She just does a lot with the ball in her hands. And I think with the spot minutes at South Carolina, it was so hard for her to like get into a rhythm every game, right? Like some days she had it, some days she didn't, and she couldn't find her way into that the days that she didn't. So I think just historically, it feels like LSU, she's going to get a little bit more of a runway to start the season at the very least. Like Kim Mulkey will find her rotation and stick to it by SEC time, but at least for the first
Yeah,
couple months, like there will be an option to see what's going to happen. And it's an important time, right? Like she's a junior, like you got to show that you're ready ready for these
yeah,
moments.
yeah, exactly. And jump into the Big 12. The Big 12 is interesting to me because they have five new head coaches this year. The one of them that I'm most intrigued about, of course, is Matthew Mitchell, who took over for Houston, who was really successful at Kentucky. So I'm interested to see what he's going to do at the University of Houston. The other coaches, Molly Miller was great at Grand Canyon, and then you have Becky Burke from Buffalo who took over Arizona. And
Mhm.
so I'm interested, and then they had an assistant coach take over at BYU. So I'm interested to see how that all plays out because those are coaches that aren't really known on the radar other than Matthew Mitchell and Molly, right? Molly Mitchell. Did I get that right? I get them
Molly
mixed up.
Miller.
Molly
Yeah.
Miller and yeah,
It's a
Matthew
lot of
Mitchell.
M's.
Yeah, a lot of M's, a lot of M's. But I'm interested to see how that plays out. And I think TCU has a great opportunity here to win the Big 12 this year.
Yeah, TCU has to be the favorite in this conference, even with all of the changes. I think the system that Mark Campbell has, just like that pick and roll heavy offense, really pro style, but like seems to give his guards a lot of freedom, right? Like we saw what Haley Van Lith was able to do in that system, even relative to what happened at LSU. Olivia Miles, I think, is just going to be a perfect hand in glove fit for what Mark Campbell's trying to do. And they have a lot of interesting pieces. I never know who's actually going to pop, right? Like, is it going to be a Marta Suarez season? Is it going to be
Yeah,
like Clara Silva season after coming over from Kentucky. Taylor Bigby, who I didn't even realize had college eligibility, still at
I know,
TCU,
right? I was
like the
surprised too.
leading
I was
type
like,
of player.
yeah,
Maddie Shear's back from her injury last season, another older player. So there's like it's the classic TCU formula, right? Like a lot of veterans, a lot of people who are like, wait, they're still in college, and just
Yeah,
enough shooting and spacing to really make it all work. I was honestly just stunned that Olivia Miles made that decision to go there instead of going pro or sticking around at Notre Dame. But like, she must have a lot of belief in what that system can show for her. So I'm just excited to see what it looks like. I don't know that like they're necessarily a national contender, but in terms of the Big 12, that's obviously the team at the top of the conference that I think everyone's chasing. Um, Baylor has to be the one
yeah,
who's, just right behind their tails. A couple losses, but you still have, Dariana Littlepage Buggs. I think Dickie Collin runs a really smart system. Um, the guard play, like they had a few seniors who I think graduated, and I'm not sure exactly who's taken their place, but uh, just like one of the smartest coaches in the
yeah.
country, honestly, not just the Big 12.
Look, I thought that she was going to go to the W. I honestly thought that she was going to get that Dallas job, but congratulations to Coach Fernandez. I'm sure he'll do good things with that team. But I thought that, she was probably high on the radar to take over Dallas.
Right,
So,
especially because she and Kurt Miller are, friends dating back to their time at
yeah,
Colorado State. Uh, the Kurt Miller coaching tree runs deep
yeah, it
in
does.
in college basketball and in the WNBA. But yeah, I just have a lot of respect for what Nikki Collin does. I think just in terms of a USC perspective, a couple years back when they played in the Sweet 16, like that game was a lot tighter than I think most USC fans thought it was going to be. Baylor
Yeah,
really, really pushed USC in that game with a team that I think was less talented than what USC was working with, right?
yeah,
So I have a lot of respect for Nikki Collin. I think her teams play hard, they play smart. And it's just a matter of like, do they have enough talent to really get over the hump when TCU is just bringing in, transfer after transfer.
yeah. Um, TCU has 6 players over 6'3", by the way. I don't think they have a player under 5'9", so they're pretty large. And Baylor, I wrote some notes down, but I forgot what I did when they had another player that came in for Baylor that's going to be pretty substantial for
It's
them.
not. Yeah.
Yeah. But the other team that I'm anxious to see this year is West Virginia. How are they going to be this year? They got a lot of transfers too from mid majors,
Mhm.
but they all seem to fit his system. Like he always knows how to go out and get the right players for his system. So I'm interested to see if West Virginia is going to take a step up this year. And Iowa State, right?
Mhm.
Iowa State has Jada, and they have who else do they have? Let me look at my notes because I got them somewhere.
Yeah,
Iowa,
Jada Williams, I thought was such a big like
yeah.
import for them. Just a guard who can really score for them. I loved Emily Ryan, what she was able to do just as a
Yeah,
player, but you only got the Emily Ryan like big scoring game every now and then, and it was just like someone needs to help supplement what Audie's doing inside. So I think Jada's a really nice addition there. I like what you mentioned about West Virginia though. I've always loved watching Jordan Harrison play, but JJ Quinterly was just like such a pivotal
yeah,
part of the identity of that team, just what she's able to do, picking up full court, her pressure, attacking the basket, getting downhill. Like that's just so hard to replicate. Like, a real WNBA guard, which JJ Quinterly proved she was this season, I think, in Dallas.
absolutely.
And that's a lot of talent, a lot of talent to fill in. And
Yeah,
major transfers are one thing, and it's one thing to keep the system, but like the system, I think, was amplified because you had a player as skilled and as talented as JJ Quinterly at the top of it. And Jordan Harrison's great, but like two guards doing that versus one guard doing that,
yeah,
I'm a little concerned about West Virginia taking a step back just because it's just really hard to replace a player that good, and it's the life
yeah.
cycle every program goes through.
And not only was she good offensively, she was the point on their defense too. I mean,
Exactly.
she was really good defensively for that team. So I think you're absolutely right. That's why I'm interested to see what he's going to do with the team that he has. Um, Going back to Iowa State, Audie Crooks, Brown, and Jada
Mhm.
are the big three there. Now, Audie Crooks, I think that she has to take a step up this year in order for Iowa State to be better than they were last year. She has to be able to prove that she can rebound the ball, that she can, be more effective offensively because she's a big body, right? So that helps her a lot. But she has great footwork. But can she
Mhm.
rebound better? Can she do the things needed to be like the star of this team that Iowa State needs her to be? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was disappointed with her and Addie Brown last year. Sort of thought they stagnated after that awesome, freshman season where they just like burst out of the gate and had a really nice set of, non-conference wins and then, take Stanford down to the wire in the tournament. Um, the defense really has to take a step forward for Audie Crooks. Like if you're the center, you have to just provide any amount of resistance. And Audie Crooks was just like the path of least resistance sometimes for opposing players. Uh, I think, the offense is always really pretty to watch. She gets in her groove and her footwork, like you mentioned. Her hands are so good. She's got
Yeah.
great feel and touch around the basket. Addie Brown, I think you just want to see her be a little bit more decisive, a little bit more aggressive, especially when those openings come, when like two go to Audie in the middle. But yeah, I think what they needed was just somebody to like take a little bit of the pressure off of Audie Crooks to have to do everything offensively, and like that's where a Jada Williams is really exciting. Uh, I still just don't think their defense is going to be quite good enough to get where they want to in the Big 12. Um, you know,
I
uh,
agree.
Audie has taken a step forward that like we haven't seen. It's just I'm a little concerned about that.
Yeah, I totally agree. So I'm interested in the Big 12 overall, but I do think TCU is going to win that conference. Let's switch over to the ACC. I have to leave the Big Ten last because, but let's switch over to the ACC. Who do you think is the front runner for the ACC?
Yeah, I think it's probably Duke. They go to the Elite Eight last year. Obviously, they lose a big piece in Oluchi Okanenwa, transferring to Maryland and then graduating Regan Richardson. But you get more time for Toby Fournier, more time for Jaden Donovan. I think Ashlyn Jackson is one of the best guards in the country. Just really
Yeah,
underrated in terms of what she can do as a shooter, as a scorer. They have a little bit more big depth this season. Like I thought one of their major problems last year was they just didn't really have a true center, and Toby was sort of like masquerading as that at times. Um, they get Riley Nelson back, this Maryland transfer who I was really excited about, who ended up missing all of last season with an injury. So just so many pieces, and they play so hard, so fast. Like they really get into you, and that depth just sort of wears you down at the end of games. You see Duke is always in games, no matter how much the deficit seems to be, because they just have more bodies that they can throw at you.
yeah,
And
yeah,
obviously, Carol Lawson, super respected coach, now the next coach for Team USA. So I think the recruiting is going to take a big step forward there. Just thinking back to when like Duke men's basketball coach K got the job, just the caliber of recruit that started coming in for that
yeah.
program. Once that happened, I think we're going to see a similar effect for the women's team now that Kara has the big job. But uh, I I'm always concerned to just like what Duke looks like offensively in the half court in crunch time situations. Like you think about their game against South Carolina in the Elite Eight last year, where like they couldn't even get the ball to their best player, Toby Fournier, on the last possession when they were down, and it's like, well, what are we doing here?
Yeah,
You hope that just like another year of seasoning for Carol Lawson gets her better in those execution situations. I thought she did a great job coaching the AmeriCup team this summer, actually for Team USA.
yeah.
A really good team of college players mostly. Um, but yeah, I don't think that there's like a singular great team in the ACC. Like Duke is kind of the closest it gets, but they're just so deep and so talented that they're gonna be really hard to break through during the regular season. In terms of like postseason upside, I still kind of love like what NC State could potentially do, or Hannah Hidalgo I think is still the best player in this conference. But top to bottom, I like what Duke is able to do during the regular season.
That reminds me, I was watching the Big 12 Media Day or a Big 12 Media Days on YouTube, and one of their players, let me find out yeah, her name is Katie Radigan, right? She's a guard from Notre Dame. She said that Notre Dame, word for word, Notre Dame is going to shock the world and they are going to be beyond successful this year. She's a transfer from Loyola. She played 3 games before getting hurt last year. She was out for the season. And
Okay.
as a sophomore for Loyola, she averaged 8.4 points a game. So, I understand that, she wants to hype up her team, but, I Notre Dame, I don't see it. I mean,
Yeah.
with Hannah Hidalgo that's it. I don't, and they have a phenomenal coach there, but
Mhm.
I don't see it. I'm asking somebody to help me, please. I'm willing to see it. I'm open minded, but I can't see it.
Yeah, I think, USC fans will see a lot of similarities between the roster they return and the roster Notre Dame returns because four of their starters are gone, right? Three of them graduated, one of them ends up going to TCU. The rest of the rotation, you look at Kate Coble out in LSU.
Yeah,
So it's basically just Hannah Hidalgo and Cass Prosper left from last year's team. And then you bring back KK Bransford, who sat last season with an injury, and it's just a very guard heavy group. Guards that I like quite a bit, but like who's going to get rebounds, who's going to,
yeah,
defend in the paint, who's going to be that, you know, post presence that you're hoping for to sort of complement what Hannah can do. I have zero ceiling at what Hannah can do. I'm just super impressed with her as her motor, her efficiency. Like she shot the ball quietly very well last year, like 85% free throws, 40% from 3-point range.
Yeah.
Leads the country in steals again, 23 points per game. Like the numbers are astounding. And she's doing all this like as a secondary option sometimes, as a third option sometimes with Citron and Leah King and Olivia
Right.
Miles on this team. But like that is so much talent out the door and not a ton coming back in.
Yeah.
So while I believe in Hannah Hidalgo's ability to like take over a game for spurts, I I'm just a lot less bullish on what Notre Dame can do collectively because it's just there's
Well, they didn't.
lots of locked
In
out
my
battles.
yeah, in my opinion, they didn't bring in. I understand, transfers and you fit to your system because Lindsay does a great job at that at USC. But the transfers that they bought in, I mean, I just can't see it. So we just have to wait and see, I guess. I am looking forward to seeing Stanford and Cal and what they bring this year because they've done a good job in bringing in some transfers and this is Kate Pay's second year with Stanford.
Mhm.
So I'm interested to see how she turns that team around from last year. Do you have any thoughts on them?
Yeah, I thought, Nunu O'Gara had a really nice season last year. I think just another full year of being a featured option on Stanford is going to serve her quite well. I mean, just like getting into a second season of being a head coach has to be a huge boon for Kate Pay because
Yeah,
replacing Tara Vanderveer is just the optics of that are so challenging, right? And to step into that role, like it just she seems a lot more comfortable just having watched her at media day, like bringing in some of the players who are like closer in age, I would say, to Kate, like to serve on different roles in her staff. I think is going to serve her well. With Cal, like there was a lot of talent, leaving. Marta Suarez, we talked about her earlier, leaving Cal to go to TCU. Um, I haven't like gone super deep onto their roster, honestly, but I thought Sharman did a great job last year, just sort of mixing and matching the pieces that, fit and like
yeah,
that really heavy 3-point offense. It's gonna be different this year because their front court depth, I think, is better than it was a year ago. But I think Sharman has proved pretty adaptable. And like I said, the ACC, like a lot of good teams. I don't think there's a lot of great teams, and there's an
right.
opportunity here to really like find your way up the standings if you win a couple games that like maybe other people don't expect you to.
Yeah. Now, I just want to talk about two other teams in the ACC, then we can move on.
Mhm.
North Carolina State and North Carolina are iffy to me. North Carolina State is actually ranked in the top 10, I think, and let me see. North Carolina is ranked 11th, and North Carolina State is ranked ninth, I think, in
Mhm.
the AP poll. And that's another. Those are two other teams that I can't mentally see why they're in the top 15. North Carolina
Gotcha.
State, especially.
Yeah, so let's start with Carolina. The Tar Heels, I thought they had a great freshman class come in last year. Sarah Toomey, Lainey Grant, Layla Hull, Renaya Kelly, I think is a little bit older actually, but like just a lot of scoring pop, a lot more versatility than we've seen traditionally out of Carolina. They were a little bit young, a little bit green last year, but I really thought that they just showed a lot of poise and confidence at this level. And I think them coming together, like there's a lot of room for upside there, and they all basically stayed together at Carolina, which you
Yeah,
don't see, right? Those cores don't stick together. They bring in Nyla Harris, who I really like out of Louisville, just like a good athletic forward who can complement a lot of these guard skills that they have, and Alina Arnisalo from UCLA. I thought,
yeah,
had a nice season for the Bruins and will be given a little bit more opportunity to show what she can do. Just a good big guard, like makes smart decisions, with the ball in her hands. The perimeter depth at Carolina is just fantastic. So if they can get like one of their bigs to really pop, whether that's Toomey, whether that's Blanca Thomas, I think there's again just a real depth of talent there and a lot of respect for what Courtney Bangart does as a coach. I know it wasn't the best season for Carolina last year, but they were sort of like in this in between of whose team is it now? Like, is it this great freshman class? Is it, we're still deferring to these veterans, and now it's just the youngins, right? Like this is their group. We're going to run with it. So maybe we're being a little premature on ranking them this high, but I do think there's just a absolute mondo amount of talent on Carolina. So
yeah,
I see where the optimism is coming from, even if it may be a little early on the boat. Rather be early than late.
yeah, yeah,
As far as North Carolina State, they lose just two incredibly talented players in Sanaya Rivers and Isaiah James, who both had wonderful seasons in the WNBA. Like you can tell why they meant so much of this program because they are just rock solid, super excellent players. And replacing them is going to be just a mountain of a challenge. Not to mention Madison Hayes, just like this solid, consummate veteran who's played every position Westmore asked of her over the last 5 years. I think where the optimism comes from is Zoe Brooks, was just really solid as their backup, like sort of just the waiting in the weights, like for when Sanaya and Isaiah needed a break, and like she still brings the pace, brings the playmaking. They've got a couple other young wings and Devin Quigley and Zamaria Jones, who I thought
Yeah.
had some flashes last year. They showed up really well in the tournament. They had a great game against LSU, eventually just losing down the wire to again an LSU team that I really like. But the upside I think for Carolina State is that they bring in Camille Pierre in the transfer portal, and
Yeah.
Camille Pierre and Michaela Blakes were like the only teammates I think in the country to both average 20 points a game last season. And you think about North Carolina State and all of the guard play that they had last year. Well, now they actually have a front court player, to sort of
Yeah.
give balance to that roster, and that I think is where people are really excited about NC State. I think there's really like people are underrating the losses of Rivers and James and just like, oh, Brooks can step in. No, you don't just step in for Sanaya Rivers and Isaiah James. Like those are two first round WNBA draft picks. Like Sanaya Rivers is already one of the best defenders in the guard position at the professional level. So I think expecting Zoe and like the other guards at NC State to just fill in for that is kind of silly. But
Yeah.
NC State has been this team over the last few seasons that just gets better as the year goes on. Like Wes Moore has gotten really good at developing and like not peaking too early in the season. NC State is always really playing their best basketball in March. And I think that ranking is more just a reflection of like people trust Wes Moore, people trust Zoe Brooks, and they were very excited by what Vanderbilt had with Camille Pierre
Yeah.
last year.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know that it's too high necessarily because like there aren't teams that I necessarily think are being underrated in the rankings. Like my poll, I gotta be honest, looks entirely different than what the top 25 looks like right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I have always been higher on NC State, I think, than the consensus. So I'm the wrong person to ask about why we're too high on NC State.
I feel you completely, but my concern is now they just played High Point in an exhibition game. I don't know if you followed that, but I mean, High Point took them. They played them close all the way through to midway in the fourth quarter, and then North Carolina kind of pulled away. But as I was watching it on the stats, I was watching the stats board on it. Camille Pierre, I know it's going to take some time for her to fit into that system and to adjust, but I think she scored 8 points that game, and I think people came out and expected her to score 20 right away. So
Yeah,
that's where my interest is going to be. How is she going to fit into this new system? Because Vanderbilt has a completely different system than what
totally.
Wes Moore does, and how is she going to be able to shine by helping her other players around her be better? You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
that's what I'm interested in seeing with Camille Pierre.
Yeah, I think it's just going to take some time. Like I think there's a lot of talent on the Wolfpack. Admittedly, a lot of it's new. I think they have even a UConn transfer who came in, Caden Samuels,
Yeah,
right?
she actually started and she played really well. I think
Yeah.
she only missed like two threes the entire game.
Right. So it's a lot of newness. And unfortunately, like every team in college basketball basically is pretty new this year, right? So
Yeah, it's
you're just sort
crazy.
of throwing stuff at a wall and seeing what works at this point of the year. And you just sort of bet on the star power to maybe carry you through by the end of the season. But I'm very, very high on what NC State can be at the end of the year. I don't think it's going to look like that now. I think it's going to take some lumps, especially in the non-conference season. But that game against USC should be pretty fun, right?
Yeah, they go with second week, I think. The second
Yeah.
week they're there, so
More
that's
of a
gonna
home game for NC State, though. It's in Charlotte, so yeah.
yeah, that's gonna be an interesting game for sure. Let's switch it up and talk a little bit about the Big Ten before we
Mhm.
get to the Big East and the UConn giant that they are this year. But
Giant that they are, yeah.
yeah, let's talk a little bit about the Big Ten. And, you know, I have UCLA winning the Big Ten. My top four were UCLA, Maryland, Michigan, USC, and Michigan State, and then Ohio
Mhm.
State. That was my top six.
Gotcha.
And with Maryland, I think Maryland has a good team. I really do. My concern with Maryland is they have 11 guards. So they are a real guard. I mean, 11. And I think they have like 13 or 14 players. So
Mhm.
11 out of 13 or 14 is really guard heavy. That their post, one of them I think is a redshirt freshman, and the other one is really young too. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see what Maryland does and how they play, how they substitute, how they defend. But they have a really good team even with 11 guards.
Oh, I completely agree. So one thing I'll say is that college basketball is so strange about how they list positions. Like players who are listed as guards. I mean, Rhea Marshall was listed as a guard for her first two seasons at USC, and it's like, I mean, sure, like, the girl has skills, but like she is not a guard for what we were doing at the college basketball level. So I'm always a little weary when I look at a roster and it tells me like, oh, this person's a guard, this person's a guard, because I think people are just silly about how they want to categorize themselves. Like Yarden Garzone, she's 6'3". She's a hell of a wing. She can guard your 3 or 4, and she's listed as a guard, right? So
But she
these are my
doesn't play
plea.
inside though. She
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 doesn't play
likes to she
inside,
does a
but she
catch
can
catch inside. She's a catch and three shooter. That's what the best part of her
defensively.
game.
She can guard bigger
Yeah,
positions.
okay,
So
defensively.
yeah.
Yeah, okay. I
This
agree
is
with
just my annual plea to college basketball, like PR people. Just let people be called forwards. It's okay. We're not gonna like hold it against them if they're a forward. It's fine.
Yeah, yeah,
I think Brenda Frese is one of the more flexible coaches in the women's college basketball, in that she is really good at just adapting to what she has. Last year
yeah.
they also had a pretty perimeter heavy roster and just played with a lot of pace, took a lot of threes, excelled in transition, were really disruptive defensively. Like, they had a game against UCLA where I thought like they couldn't do anything against Betts, that's for sure, but they held everybody else down on
Yeah,
UCLA.
yeah.
And I think she still coaches them really hard defensively. There's going to be matchups inherently that are just going to be tricky for them. Like Betts is going to be tricky for them. That's just the
Well, I
way of the
think Betts is going to be tricky for everybody in the Big Ten
world.
except for Penn State.
That's a good point. Yeah, Betts is just
Yeah,
tricky. And I thought, against Michigan, who has some good bigs, they did well to stop them. Against Ohio State, which had some size, they did well to stop them. So, like, there is there are pros and cons to that roster, but I love how fast they play. I love just the
yeah,
individual skill on that roster. Like Keelan Smykel is such a good scorer, bringing in Yarden, who I thought, I mean, really like one of the three best shooters in the country, honestly.
yeah.
Like
Absolutely.
which she shoots at. Conanwa coming in from Duke, just another injection of pace and sort of chaos that I think Maryland really excels with. Um, I
She's
have a
really
lot
defensively, so that's going to help them out tremendously on the defensive side of
totally.
the ball.
Just somebody who can apply some pressure at the point of attack. Like they just didn't really have a ton of that last year with some of the injuries they went through. So I think just the way Maryland wants to play with how fast they want to play, it behooves them to have like 11 guards who can just do sort of similar things, and you can just plug and play and keep the tempo high.
Yeah,
Uh, I'm pretty high on Maryland. I think they would have done better in the tournament last year had they not had those two big injuries, around January. Again, the overall upside is a little limited because, like you mentioned, like a couple matchups, I don't really know what you're supposed to do about them, right? So,
yeah,
but
yeah. I
I
think they're going
I
to be
like their
like
players a lot.
Tennessee. I think they're going to play fast paced like Tennessee. I don't know if you're going to see a hockey substitution style of play, but I think that they're going to be subbing a lot because they have so many players listed as guards on their team. So
Hmm.
they're going to be subbing in and out frequently because they're all the guards are good.
Yeah, totally.
You
Yeah,
know.
all the guards are good. Like, when Bree McDaniel comes back, love watching her. When Mer McNeil comes back, really enjoy watching her. I thought Poffenbarger had a great season last year. We mentioned Schmeichel, Conenwa, who I'm very excited about. Still can't believe Duke let her go, or that
I
she
know,
chose to
right?
leave Duke. Like
Come
that
on,
was just
Kara. Come on,
us.
Kara. What are you doing?
Yeah. Um, yeah, I think Maryland makes a lot of sense in that top two. I'm a little bit higher on Washington, I think, than most
Yeah.
teams.
No, I'm higher on Washington. I think I had them 7.
Yeah, obviously, they lose Delia Daniels, who was a big piece of what they did last year, but you still have Savia Sellers, you still have Hannah Steins, Ella Dean, Chloe Briggs, just like I think Tina Langley's just slowly been building up like a core there that has spent a lot of time together, that plays really hard. I think a lot of guards too, but like they get into the paint, and Avery Howell, I think, is gonna be an awesome addition there,
Yeah.
just in the floor a little bit, giving him a little bit more size in the perimeter too. Uh, I was kind of surprised at like how much higher I had Washington than some other teams, but I
Where did
think
you have them? Where do you
I
have?
mean I have them in my top 25. They are not ranked.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I think they should be ranked now with the AP. There's a lot
Yeah,
of teams that
they're in my teens somewhere. So
yeah,
like I don't know. I think there's a lot of really good players on that team. Like I've loved Ella Dean ever since she got to Washington. I think they were sort of like in a lot of games, but couldn't quite get over the hump against a lot of
Yeah.
these other Big Ten teams last year. And I think just one more year of experience for those younger players. I have some high hopes. So they're one of the teams that I'm planting my flag on early that I think I'm going to be right about them later, but I'm going to get
Yeah.
in on them now.
Yeah.
I think the Huskies are pretty good. You mentioned Michigan, obviously awesome freshman class last year. So much fun watching Olivia Olson, Silas Swords, Mila Holloway. Again, super cool that they stayed together and like, you know, have an
Yeah.
opportunity to
I
go.
have them number three in the big. I have them being number three, and I'm sticking to it. I
I
think
think
they're a
that's
good.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
Again, Kim Barnes-Rico did an awesome job last year. Uh, I'm always like thinking about Iowa State this year, right? Like I thought, oh, it's just linear development, right? Like next step forward for Audie Crooks and Addie Brown, and it wasn't quite like that. And maybe it's going to work for Washington, maybe it's going to work for Michigan. I hope it does because like that's what you want to see. You want to see teams grow together and develop. So I always have to like be like, okay, I think this is what should happen naturally as the next year of development, but it's not always the case. And again, I'd rather be more optimistic on teams than more pessimistic on them. So
Yeah.
happy to see Michigan keep its core together. I think they added Kendall Dudley too from
Yeah. UCLA.
UCLA, who I liked a lot. Just a good athletic mover, right? Like she just is always getting in the right spot, whether that's to get rebounds, move the ball. Um, Thought she would have fit in very nicely with the Bruins still, but a good get for Michigan, that in conference transfer. Uh, yeah, I think with Michigan, it's kind of similar to the Maryland situation where like they have one or two posts, but they don't really run the ball through the middle, right? Like it's a lot of action
Yeah.
on the perimeter and like their guards get downhill and stuff like that. So
They do a
uh,
lot of read and react
exactly.
type of
The
play.
the bigger teams can still present some issues, but Michigan provides so many issues on the other end, like with their
Man.
size and skill on the perimeter. So they're a team I like to watch quite a bit, just
Yeah. They're fun
the
to
way they
watch.
play. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm interested to see. We'll get to USC in a second, but Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan State are teams like Michigan State to me is going to be better than anybody thinks. They're underdogs right now, and I really think Michigan State is going to surprise a lot of people. I really do.
I was surprised at how low they were ranked too, when I pulled up the
Yeah,
Big Ten
yeah.
preseason
That
poll.
I just think that people they're not doing their research, but that's a whole nother story. But I
Still have
also
Grace Van Sluten, still one of the hardest players, honestly, I think in the Big Ten to
yeah,
guard.
you
Yeah.
know, and then with Ohio State, I'm interested to see what he's going to do. He brings in the Todd from Boston College as another perimeter shooter for them, and she was really good at Boston College. But I don't know how, his off-season stuff is going to affect
Yeah.
the beginning part of this season for this team. How that's going to affect them if it does or if it doesn't or what. But I'm interested to see what Ohio State does. But the team that I'm watching is Penn State because I really want to see Merkel and Kiyomi McMiller play together. I want to
Mhm.
see how that's going to work, and I want to see how well they'll play off of each other. And they got some other key pieces on that team too that fit that team nicely. And I think that they're going to be in a lot better position that they were in last year for sure.
Yeah, this was a tough watch last year, but McMiller is just, I mean, obviously so talented. Didn't quite work out for her. Is it Syracuse? Syracuse?
Rutgers,
Rutgers, sorry, yeah.
yeah,
New York school that I've forgotten about. But yeah. Uh,
wow,
yeah. But yeah, I'm interested to see what Keelan McMiller, Gracie Merkel look like together. Just a good inside outside tandem, old school kind of situation. I mean, Kiyomi is just like you said, just so freaking talented. I
yeah,
mean, a little a little big for her britches maybe early in her
yeah,
career. She
yeah,
can do a
yeah.
lot of things on the court. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So let's talk a little bit about USC because I think that again, it's not the lack of talent that USC has in their system. I think, to me, in my opinion, when I see all the stuff going on online and so on and so forth, it's the lack of respect that they have for what Coach Gottlieb can do and what she's done in the past with these teams. And I think that, she does a really good job of, like I always say, of getting puzzle pieces to fit with her system and what she wants to do and bringing the best out of players. And I think people are in denial about how good Kennedy Smith is. They're in denial about how good Jazzy Davidson is, and they're in denial about how good Cara Dunn and London Jones are going to be for this team. And then they bring in a 6'5" center from Auburn who didn't play that much at Auburn, but is doing fantastic in the preseason and summer workouts up until now. And then they bring in Gerda from overseas. And then they have Viv and Laura, who Viv played under Kiki and Rhea last year and learned a ton. And I just think it's going to be a more win by committee. There's not going to be that JuJu Watkins. That's a lot of points to make up for. But I think it's going to be a win by committee. They're going to be a very defensive oriented team. And I just think people are just, they're counting them out because Juju's not there. And I don't think that's a fair assessment.
Yeah, for me, what I worried about with USC is just the front court. Like they played three front court players last year and all of them graduated and didn't really bring in like a high profile transfer in the sense that like Cara Dunn, I think, is a high profile transfer. London Jones is a high profile transfer, but both of them are, perimeter players. So there's just a lot more unknown with what's happening with the front court, right? Like Vivian didn't get to play last year. Probably got a great learning experience under Kiki and Clarice and Rhea, but we just don't know what she looks like yet, right? And we
Right.
don't know really what Kim Moulton's going to look like, even though coming from the SEC, I think is always a good indicator for a big. But
Yeah.
um, to me, that's really what it is. It's just there was so much certainty you were getting from your front court production. Like you knew what Ray Marshall was going to do, you knew what Kiki Iriafen was going to do, one of the best bigs in the nation, and now it's just okay, some question marks, right? And
Yeah.
I think if you look at just the bottom half of the roster, just like the backcourt part of it, I'm like, yeah, that's a Big Ten contender, right? Like Jazzy Davidson, I'm not saying she's going to be JuJu, but I wouldn't be surprised if she had like 85, 90% of what JuJu did her freshman year. Like that would be totally within reason. Kennedy Smith, awesome. Just a rock solid wing who can take on a lot more scoring responsibility, I think, given the opportunity this year. Malia Samuels, defensive pest, Cara Dunn,
Yep.
like great player at Georgia Tech. I think London is going to provide some needed shooting, just her willingness to shoot, I think, is something that USC hasn't always had in recent seasons. Like they
Yeah.
have good
Yeah.
shooters, but
Yeah.
someone who can just like is going to put it up at all times, that's London Jones. And London and Malia together is like one of the more hilarious backcourts because like I think they can really get after defensively, but it's just going to be funny to watch because they're both very small. But I'm excited to see
Yeah.
what it looks like. So yeah, in terms of the perimeter rotation, I I think USC is very, very high potential there. It's just a matter of how quickly does the front court come together? Like, right?
Yeah.
Are they going to be as rock solid defensively as Kiki and Rhea and Clarice were, in the right matchups?
Yeah.
Are they going to be able to provide a little bit of, post scoring? It's just going to take a little bit of time, right? Like, again, exhibitions really hard to know what to make out
Yeah.
of those, and
Yeah.
um, but yeah, people are rightfully high on Lindsay Gottlieb, right? Like she knows what she's doing. She puts people in the right positions. She gets them to the next level. Like the league is just littered with Lindsay Gottlieb products, both at the NBA level and at the WNBA level. So
Yeah.
um, I would not bet against her. Again, it's just if they had brought in like one front court transfer that you were confident was going to be like a 12.8 rebound kind of player, I think the national expectation of USC would just be significantly higher.
Yeah, I agree, but we'll see because I think that Gerda is going to provide some surprise points for them as far as the post that they brought in from overseas. She's a good
Right.
pick and pop. She's a good pick and pop perimeter post player,
Mhm.
and you're right. It's going to take some time, and I agree with you. There's a question on the front court, but I just don't doubt Lindsay. You know what I mean? She'll figure it out. She'll find a way, and it
Yeah.
could be that there'll be that team that was in her second year where they didn't have a lot of offensive power, but they were like ranked top three defensively in the
So that's
nation,
some stuff
which got
finishing
them right
defense.
back to
Yeah.
the NCAA tournament.
That
So
was the Destiny Littleton team, right?
yeah, the Destiny
Yeah.
Littleton, Katie Sissoko, and so you never know, and those were under the radar portal transfers, right? Not high on the portal transfer, especially Katie Sissoko, and she ended up being a pro.
Mhm.
So you just never know with Lindsay. But so I'm really anxious to see what they can do this year in the big, and I'm excited about what's going to happen with this team next year.
Yeah,
So
they have a tough non-conference schedule to start too.
yeah,
So like it's a team that's still figuring each other out, but like it's
they get
not
right
easy.
into it, right? They get
Yeah,
right
you get
into
right
it.
into it. Yeah.
North Carolina State, then South Carolina.
Mhm.
I mean, it's going to be amazing. So I'm looking forward to that. Are you going to be there?
Yeah, I should be at the South Carolina game. I was hoping
Okay.
to actually get out to Charlotte for that first set of games, but not going to work out.
Yeah. Are you going to be in town for their first game for at New Mexico? Or are you
Yep,
going
I'll be
to?
there.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, good, good. Okay, let's talk a little bit about UConn.
The big bad wolf, right?
Man, they look. I got them winning it all this year. I mean, they're just so good with the players that they have. They just really good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty confident that Sarah Strong is the best player in the country right now. Just her versatility, her consistency. I mean, she watching her in person, I was unprepared for what it was going to look like. Like she's so fluid, so smooth, so smart. Like she always seems to be in the right place. And that was as a freshman last year. Like I was stunned at how good she was. I
Does
mean,
she remind you of Maya Moore a little bit?
I guess positionally they're a little bit different because Maya was more of a wing,
Yeah.
and Sarah plays a little bit more inside, but like in terms of their ability to just take control of a game, totally. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, she's just so fluid. Maya she's such a fluid player. And
Hmm.
when I look at Sarah Strong, when she gets the ball, her fluidity of the game and the way she moves is so Maya Moore like. Like she's not afraid of anything. She can
Yeah.
step out and shoot that three. She can drive to the bucket. And she's a big girl.
Yeah. She reminds me a little bit more of Stewie than Maya Moore.
Oh,
Uh,
really?
yeah. Maya Moore is really like my personal GOAT favorite to watch.
Yeah.
She has, not that Sarah Strong's not a killer, but there was like a certain aggressive mentality to Maya Moore that I haven't yet seen in Sarah. Like Sarah fits within the team concept perfectly. She's absolutely everything you'd want her to be. But there was like an F you, I've got this to Maya Moore that I haven't yet seen with Sarah, and there's plenty of time to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, Sarah Strong, just tremendous. And they're losing Paige Beckers, which I feel like we haven't talked about really. Like it's kind of
Yeah.
important that they lost Paige Beckers. But you think
Yeah.
about all the talent that fills in that spot. You've got Easy Fudd ready to take on a bigger role, Kiki Arnold ready to take on a bigger role. Like they bring in Kaylee Heckle to do some of like I think the Caitlin Chen role of what she
Yeah.
filled on last year's team.
Yeah.
They've got Sarah Williams, from Wisconsin, just in case you needed more big depth, right? Not like
Man.
Alex Brady and Jana Alfie weren't enough.
That big three, I mean, they got the big three for sure. They got the big three of the big three. That's why they're just gonna, and they're just gonna be dominant this year, I think.
Yeah. The crazy thing about last year was that they didn't really have to be dominant during the regular season, right? Like they took their lumps. They lost to USC, they lost to Notre Dame, they lost to Tennessee, right? Every time they had a chance to really make a big statement game for the first few months, it was just like, oh, like we're not quite there yet. But it was a different UConn team where like Dino just had them getting ready, getting ready, getting ready. And then by the time they get South Carolina in February, it's like, oh crap, like this is UConn again.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So yeah, I don't think this is going to be like that. I think they're just going to be dominant on their A game from the start this year.
yeah, yeah,
And they don't, the problem with UConn is like they don't play in a conference where it's super fun to watch them all the time. But every time they play against a ranked team, like you can bet that's gonna be appointment television just because like they have gamers, like AZ Bud was the most outstanding player in the Final Four, like on a team that featured Paige Becker and Sarah
yeah,
Strong, right?
yeah,
So yeah, they just have people who like rise to the occasion. Kaylee Heckle obviously got so much better at the end of her season at USC. Um, I've always really liked watching KK Arnold. She is such a good defender, like really increases their pressure and like allows them to get going in transition because she can disrupt ball handlers and create turnovers. So yeah, I mean, it's a very likable team. It's a very well coached team. Obviously,
yeah,
super talented. I don't really see anybody being in the same tier as them, quite honestly. I know that there's a lot of other really good teams, but UConn is just special. And maybe I'll be surprised by somebody else or UConn like will miss Page more than I think they will. But for
yeah,
now, like they're the ones. Like it's UConn and everybody else.
yeah. It's gonna be. And I feel sorry for every team in the Big East. I mean,
Right?
sometimes I wish UConn was just in one of the other conferences to make things more exciting. Um,
Exactly.
to balance it out a little bit more. But the Big East, I don't think Creighton is always the number two team in that conference, right? And I'm sure they're going to be a distant two in that conference this year. So the Big East to me, in my opinion, is not going to be a very fun conference to watch this year.
Yeah, Creighton I've liked for the last couple of years because they had that core of like Lauren Jensen and Morgan Molly and Emma Ronsiek and like they played together for 3, 4 years, but they all graduated. So now it's
Yeah.
like, I mean, are they even going to be fun to watch as the second best team? I don't know yet.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. So let me ask you some questions real quick. What individual player are you keeping your eye on this year to see if they can be who you think they can be?
Yeah, I mean, so many.
Yeah. Okay, give me
I'm
your top three
okay,
or
so this
three
is not like
players.
necessarily like the best players. It's just players that I'm like particularly interested in if they can fulfill the role they need to for their teams. Kate Koval at LSU, you
She
know,
played good. She played
been
good
good in
last
that
night.
exhibition,
Yeah.
yeah. But Kim Mulkey always like she likes to have a big she can count on. And we got to a point at Notre Dame where Neil Ivy did not feel like she could count on Kate Koval. And I don't know if that was the right decision or not, but if LSU is going to be great, which I hope they could be great because I love watching Flage, I love watching, Mylasia and Michaela Williams, they're going to need a big to really solidify that position. And I think it could be Kate Cole. She's had some really good games as a freshman, but it's a big spotlight, big job, and that I'm really interested to see if she can, rise to the occasion there. Um, who else? Who else? I mean, I'm not just saying this because it's USC podcast, but I'm thrilled to watch Jazzy Davidson. Like, she
Yeah.
was so good at the Hoop Summit. She was so good at the U19 World Cup. Next to Sanaya Hall, by the way, like, my goodness, you talk about next season with the three
That's
of
what I'm
them.
saying, man. And then they
You,
just got
Sanaya, and Jazzy, holy crap, is that going to be a team to watch? But
with
uh,
Sataya Fagan that just signed to or that just committed to
also true,
from
right, right.
Australia. Whew. But anyways,
But just this is Jazzy's year, right? Like I'm
yeah,
not trying to discount Kennedy Smith at all, but like in terms of what she can do with the ball in her hands, Jazzy's just a special kind of player, and I'm really excited to see if she can, again, I don't want to just like compare it to Juju, but like Juju was so fun to watch 2 years ago when it was like new and everyone didn't realize what was coming and she was just dropping 50 on Stanford. Like it was a really fun year and I hope that we can have a fun year for Jazzy Davidson, even if the expectations aren't quite what they were, before Juju got hurt. I think it'd be really fun. Let's see, let me get one like middle of the country player here, just to spread out the geography. Um, I'm really interested in Iowa. Like, I know, God,
yeah,
it's so creative to think about Iowa and college basketball now, but
right,
uh, they've got this girl, Addie Deal, freshman out of Mater Dei,
yeah,
and she is, first of all, that she was in the backyard of USC New Salem and chose to go to Iowa makes me think that she has some really special offensive skills because she wanted to play in the Jan Jensen system that enables, Caitlin Clark to flourish. And Iowa's got a lot of really fun veterans coming back. They got Hannah Stuelke. They've got, the freshmen that were good last year. I think you put in a really creative big guard like Addie Deal. I'm really interested to see what that looks like. I think Iowa's always one of the more fun teams to watch offensively. They obviously handed USC one of their only losses this season last year. Uh,
yeah.
but that fan base really gets behind a high-powered offense, and I think that she can make some fun things happen. So that's another one I have my eye on.
Okay. I agree with you on Jazzy Davidson. I'm interested to see what her game looks like this year. Do I believe she's going to be another Juju? No, but Jazzy Davidson is a different type of player. She's more ballerina-like, more fluid,
Her
more,
name is just so fun, right?
yeah, jazzy. Man, and she got that nickname because she was so jazzy on the court. So she went from Jasmine to
Jasmine.
Jazzy because, yeah. So it's going to be fun to see what she does on this team because I think, again, that not a lot of people are talking about her like they were talking about Juju, right? So, and she was a number one ranked high school player coming out, but they're not talking about her. So I think that she has a chip on her shoulder there. She's quiet, just like Juju is, doesn't speak much, very shy, very introverted, but just wants to go out on the court and handle business. So I'm interested to see how she fits into Lindsay's system. Another player that I'm interested in is Cody McMahon. How is she going to do at
Hmm,
Ole Miss?
great
Um,
choice.
yeah, what she's going to do there and how she's going to fit into that system and what Coach Yo allows her to do in that system. And is she going to be the go-to player there? It's Cody McMahon. And then I'm also interested just in, like I said, in Tennessee, what they're going to do this year because they have the twins,
Great.
there that came
Older
in.
twins, yeah.
Yeah, they have the number one ranked, I think, freshman class coming in. If I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, but I think they do have
I think
the
that's right. I think
number
LSU might
one
be number
freshman.
one, but it's all right up there. Yeah.
Yeah. And the way that she does her hockey substitutions, how's it going to work this year? So I'm really interested in watching Tennessee as a whole and what they can do this year, making it to the tournament or even in the SEC if they can really surprise some people and beat South Carolina and Texas.
Yeah, I just have one more to add. We were talking about all these like great freshmen. I really want to watch Oklahoma this year. I thought
Yeah.
they
Chavez.
just like this. it felt like Reagan Beers was like still trying to figure out how it worked with her in that system last year because it was so different from Oregon State and so different from how she'd grown up playing. But a year more, I think she's so talented and you need a player like her in certain matchups. But then they also have just the high flying with Chavez, with Peyton Vorholz, with Zaya Van. And I just really like the way Jenny Baranczyk coaches, and I think they have a lot of really talented players. And I'm always interested, like, are they just like a cute story, or can they actually be really good and like beat one of these teams in a big game? So uh maybe Chavez is like the step that like gets them over the hump. But yeah, Oklahoma's a team that I'm also very interested in watching.
Yeah, and you make a good point because Reagan Beers, I think that she's going to be a more go-to player this year, but Chavez coming in is ball dominant, and I got to watch the coach speak on her media day, and she was saying that what she sees in Chavez when she gets on the floor is that she just wants to win, and that she is trying to incorporate you know, uh, assisting to her players a lot more. So that's going to be interesting because every game that I've watched of Aaliyah Chavez, she was always shoot first individual type player. Great player, but she was always shoot first, ball
Mhm.
dominant type player. So that's going to be interesting to see and how that unfolds. But I agree, Oklahoma is going to be a team to watch. So
It's a lot of
the
fun teams to watch. I can't wait.
yeah. I just want to mention one more thing before I let you go. SMU with Adia Barnes. Now they played West Texas A&M last night and they lost to West Texas A&M. So I'm interested to see what Adia Barnes is going to do at SMU. And if she can recruit there like she did at Arizona. But while she was at Arizona, they had a good team with Ari McDonald, but kind of after that they started withering. So
Right.
now I want to see, if she can go out and get that player, or if she needs a timeline to build that team, or what's going to happen since she left Arizona.
Adia Barnes is a name that I think would have gotten some WNBA interest had she just not signed a new contract at SMU. And
Yeah.
just, I had gotten the feeling that she was getting tired of college basketball over the last couple of years and was looking for a change. And then SMU just like throws a big bag of ACC money at her, and it was hard to say no. So yeah, not a ton to write home about at SMU this year,
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
it's just the start of what she's building there, right? So, we'll see if that becomes something or if it's just this was a bad idea.
Yeah. High level, guess your final four predictions preseason.
Okay. UConn. Let's throw in UCLA just because we don't really talk about them, but they're very good and
Yeah,
they're very,
UCLA, so Sienna Betts is hurt right now, and
yeah,
so is
she's got an ankle injury. Yeah.
Mia Gardner, her knee's hurt, so she's not going to play for the start of the season, from
Yeah.
what I read. So that's going to be interesting to see what happens there. But
Yeah. UCLA, I think just Betts is so good and they've got a lot of veteran talent there. I think Neepkins is going to be a fantastic addition there. So yeah, UCLA,
wait,
UConn.
before you go there, here's my thing with UCLA, and this is what I talk about all the time on my podcast. I think Lauren Betts is good around the basket. She has good footwork, and she's good defending around the basket. But she is a player that if she wants to get to the next level, she has to be able to come out and defend on a perimeter, which she does not like to do. And that's how I feel. So she has to be able to. I always say she needs to be able to come out into the lava because I always call the perimeter the lava.
I
She
like
she
that.
she has to be not afraid of the lava. So she likes to stay inside, out of the lava. And in order to take it to the next level, in my opinion, in the W, she's got to be able to defend on a perimeter.
Totally. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, let's see. Who else do I like to make the Final Four this year? Um, I don't want to be boring and pick like South Carolina again. And I honestly think like their front court is going to be a bit of an issue this year. You know what? Let's go TCU. And
Wow.
um, who else do I want? Duke. Yeah.
Okay. That's a good four. I'm going UConn. I got to throw USC in there just to throw USC in
Sorry.
there. UConn, USC, Tennessee, and Duke.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah. Hey, Sabrina, it's great. Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it. We got to do this more often. I'll see you at Galen. And if you guys, hey, talk about what you do, tell people where to find you, talk about your podcast, which I listen to all the time, by the way. Go ahead.
Yeah, so all of my work written is at theathletic.com,
One
covering
of the
both
best.
college basketball and the WNBA. I'm very proud of our newsroom. I think we do a great job of covering the sport. And
Yeah.
then we have a twice weekly podcast called No Off Season that drops on Tuesdays and Fridays. You can watch it, you can listen to it really any way you want to consume it. We're happy to have the viewers, the listeners. So all of our talking about women's basketball happens on that show.
It's a great podcast. I suggest everybody listen to it. I learn a lot from that podcast. So, hey, Sabrina, great seeing you. Great talking with you. I'll see you soon. I'll see you in Galen.
Yeah, take care.
All right. Fight on.